Welcome to Chatting GPT, the podcast where I get to speak to the interesting humans who are implementing AI in the workplace. I'm Mary Rose Lyons, the founder of AI Institute, and today I have the great pleasure of bringing you Breffni Greene. Breffni is the head of artificial intelligence and design innovation at Henry J. Lyons Architects, which is one of Ireland's leading architectural firms. He has over 14 years of experience in large scale projects as an architect himself, but his current leadership centres in an altogether different direction. I think maybe we can discuss that, Breffni, because he's the head of AI and design innovation at Henry J. Lyons. Breffni, I'm very delighted to welcome you to Chatting GPT.
Thank you very much, and thank you for having me on here today. Look
Yeah.
forward to talking all about AI. I don't need much convincing these days to talk about the latest developments and whatnot.
Yeah, no, exactly. Every time we meet up, we enthuse a lot. So let's enthuse in front of an audience.
Brilliant.
The first question I wanted to ask you was about really what inspired you to become the champion of AI within such a traditional practice such as architecture and Henry J. Lyons.
I suppose I could see something simmering away in the background and something that perhaps would very much influence creativity, how we might do work in the future. And I started to see that not many architects were really paying attention to it. Perhaps some were, and they were maybe the guiding voices in all this, but many people weren't. And I saw it originally as very much a challenge. It was an area that could eradicate, our expertise, our value. Everyone was talking about how great it was, but early days we were constantly saying, "Hey, this is not gonna, take our jobs. It's not able to do some of the more basic tasks." But the pace at which things developed, it got me to pay a lot more attention. I sought out some further education in the area as well, particularly around the areas of business strategy and change management, ethics, things like that. And I realized that perhaps there was a position for me within my own practice, or so the practice I've worked here for over 10 years, to set up this niche area and to try drive our digital change. Um, it had a little bit of convincing to do, but I
I'd
think
say
they could
so.
all begin to see that this was something we could not ignore. And the more I followed that route to convincing them to set up this role and to take this direction, I just got hooked, and over the last number of months, I've been even more hooked, and I can't imagine not doing what I'm doing right now.
Oh, fantastic. It's great, isn't it, when you're doing something that you love and it feeds into just every passion. So, what would have been like, you made the case, you obviously made it very well because that you're the head of AI. What was your first win? What did you go after first?
Um, the first win, I would have said it's a win. I wanted to introduce a platform, a tool that we could all use. We hear a lot about shadow AI, the usage of
Mm.
shadow AI. That was very much one of the convincing factors. I think when I was talking about this early days, we saw use of ChatGPT on various screens across the studio. At the time, I was managing some Teams licenses, and I knew who used it. And I would recognize the screen, that tells us, and it's on someone else's screen. I don't know why they're using it. I would see that their line manager, perhaps the director, wouldn't know why they're using it, and that just really screamed to us that there's a an issue here that we had to address. So even addressing that, bringing in a platform, starting people using this tool and convince them that this is something that we could all use, the breaking down that taboo, and it very much was a taboo. I think it still is a little bit.
Mm.
Um, um, People would just think, is it, you're just going to summarize your emails, or perhaps you're going to take away the writing skills and the critical skills that perhaps we would, cherish as designers as well, talking about the creative language. But actually, the more people engaged with it, they started to really get interested in the topic.
Mm.
And for me, well, that wasn't necessarily a first win. I think I've had many first wins. They're individual first wins. It's trying to get perhaps someone who is maybe the skeptic, or they don't know how to use it. They're a bit anxious about what AI might do for the profession, for the future of communication and the values that we bring. And when they find their hook. I think there's a win there, and I constantly get those wins. And even
Yes.
some of the people that are already convinced, I have had someone come to me today. Actually, it was the managing director came to me today, and he's very much convinced about this. But he came to me and said, "I've found this new way of doing this thing. I've been doing it this way for a while, but I think I've learned a lot doing it this way." And I found that fascinating because you can you can give people all the tutorials, the trainings. We've been to the conferences. We see things all the time in terms of use it this way, use it that way, and you really have to see how you use it yourself. How does this fit within my own work? What am I comfortable with? And as you get over that hurdle, you start looking for the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. And I could see that now with this, with the managing director. I could see
Great.
he's already been convinced, but he found that next thing that will get him on to the next level. And the interest is just building and building and building. And it's critical that that interest was happening at that level, at the board level, at a management level, at an individual and a junior level as well. But each one there was a different, perhaps
Win.
a different win. And some of them are
Yeah.
novel. Some of them are absolutely they're totally novel ideas.
Tell us more.
I mean, um, what would be a novel one? I think we were looking at writing some books. I know that we currently here we're looking at writing some books, and we had all these transcripts from different interviews over time. And I think Google Transcript wasn't able to pick up the multiple voices in the room. There were too many. We weren't really recording the audio to turn it into something like a transcript, perhaps the same way we are here. So it was people sitting all around different rooms with different tones, different energy levels, and we couldn't quite get the best out of that transcript over the last number of years. So I remember using 11 labs
Mm.
to identify all the individual voices, and then to clean up some of those areas of those voices and try to put names to the voices as well, which wasn't as easy because people were talking over each other. But then that meant that that transcript became a lot more usable out the other end. And it was something really, really simple. It was just take this thing that we couldn't really work with before
Yeah.
and use this new tool and identify those people. And why it was important is because they wanted the narrative around these books to be very natural. It was conversational based, but of course, how do you get that into a book? Like the book itself, be full of technical drawings and photographs from site and construction, and so the narrative would be relatively small for this. It's not the primary aspect of the book, but you want to capture the voice. You want to capture that thing that was said by that person, and so you want to make sure that you very much have that citation. And you're able to build a story around it. Um, and I think that was an interesting one.
Mm.
Now, the book hasn't yet been uh, published, but that win was something that convinced someone that was perhaps a skeptic. There's a tool here. We can
That
do
could
it
do
this way
it.
now.
Well,
Um,
I'll tell you a great tip from me. Okay, next time you're using any kind of recording device, you just get everyone to identify their voice at the start, and then all that scrubbing and cleaning you to do on 11 Labs taken away in one go. Um,
yeah.
so, question for you: did some of the skeptics come over from just the book experience, and also was the book produced faster? And is it? Well, you don't know yet if it's better quality. How will you measure the quality?
I think, I mean, that's one aspect, I think, of this. But what we've begun to use a lot are transcriptions. We use
Mm.
transcriptions in how we approach our work. We do a lot of report writing, and we try to do it. It's creative writing, really. We're talking about a building. We're trying to be passionate about it. At the same time, we have to say how we comply with the development plan, the
Mm.
various standards, and that is not as exciting to write about. So we have we have a way in which we have approached our writing at the moment. We want to make sure that what we're doing is compliant with development plan standards. So, right, what I do is we can put a draft piece of text into a policy auditor that I've created. It has audited all the policies from or extracted all the policies from the development plan, and
Hmm.
it'll map the piece of text against the policies. It finds the policy, the exact text. It says why this is relevant to the piece of text you were writing, and perhaps gives that extra citation. You say, here's the quote. You need to include this to show how you're compliant with that bit of development plan. Now, that is something that we are beginning to have to do a little bit more often now as these judicial reviews become the more favorable approach in determining a planning application. You're effectively trying to create something that is a checklist that you can sort of um, that you can measure against. That is not something you can really express your creativity through. So what we wanted to do with the transcriptions is we could sit in a room. There's
Mm-hmm.
multiple voices. We want to talk about a project. We want to talk about why we chose that route for the project, why it looks like that, what shape it is, what materials we chose to use, how we've approached the sustainability of the building. Um, that might be many different voices that we're trying to capture within one report, and often it's someone that's a little bit more junior that might be writing the report.
Mm-hmm.
Very hard to get that conversation to translate into the report. And I think what we can do now is we can say, well, here's the fun thing. Let's sit in a room. Let's all talk about something that we're passionate about, like we are here today.
Mm-hmm.
And you take the transcription and you're able to sort of, manipulate that, recall that 20,000 word conversation that we had to write something that's a little bit more digestible.
Yeah.
But at the same time, we're going to have the aspects that are very much going to be talking to the development plan, the apartment standards. We saw there were new apartment standards released in the last couple of weeks. So now we have to understand how does that. We were taking this course. The standards changed. How is that going to influence our design? How do we show
Mm-hmm.
compliance here? And again, just to kind of go back to that, we're at the point now where everything is just about cross-checking and have you met this criteria? So what better way to do that than to absolutely to audit your data and to
Mm-hmm.
map your data against the data that's been produced? And in that case, what the architect or the human is doing, and this applies to many different areas, is we're overseeing that process. We built the process, we check it, we oversee it, and the whole thing just becomes a little bit more enjoyable. So that conversation at the beginning is something that people really, really will enjoy doing. And we're doing it a little bit. I'd like to encourage it a bit more. You also get maybe a voice that can't sit in a room for too long, sitting there for 10 minutes, and their thoughts are heard. They're gone, they're out of the
Yeah.
room, and they're that one hook, that one line finds its way into the
That piece
report.
of gold. No, that's
Yeah.
fantastic. So what you were saying there, like as you were describing it, I could see all of you sitting around that beautiful room that you're in right now, and you're all having this discussion. So what about that graduate person who was taking notes? What is their role evolving to in this new AI first organization?
Yeah, this is an interesting one. You could read any sort of article now seeing that all the graduate jobs they're effectively been wiped out because we don't need so and so anymore. That skill has been done by an AI, and I think that's the wrong way of looking at this. And I
Yeah.
think definitely, I mean, any if you were to follow any of these experts or what the Sam Altmans and some of the researchers within the foundational models, they'll they don't really want any of us to have these roles in future. They want the model to be so powerful that it just ticks along and we're perhaps having this lovely life on the beach and we don't have jobs and there'll be
Playing
universal
violins.
income, but it doesn't really sound like it's going to go that way
No.
because that's the utopian aspect, and then there's the other side which where it could easily fall too. So I think what we see is we want to begin equipping all levels of staff with the right tools and the right skill sets to just, if they have to work in a new way, we'll work in a new way. And that goes back to the taboo. It's maybe making someone comfortable that they're able to use these tools.
And
Now,
also, can I cut across you there and sort of say, I bet you've got a very strong supporter in the MD. Like there has to be that very senior buy-in, and that makes your
yes.
job a lot easier, I expect.
Oh, absolutely. It does. It does. That the is very firm on this strategy as well. I think as he got involved in this and starts to see what I see, I think we're saying, we have to do this.
Hmm.
I think every practice has to do this
Yeah.
as well. And I'm quite uh, certain that the profession, has to find a new way of safeguarding our value. We need
Yeah.
to work with new tools. We need to find out what can we do that will not be taken from us. And that does go down to the graduate, and then the graduate, the colleges and the universities, they will all have an
A
obligation
role
to
to play
provide those new skills.
in a new way. Absolutely.
Absolutely.
So we'll go back to the graduate thing in a moment. Like I'm actually just reminded again, and as you were talking before, I was just kind of thinking, like, my experience of architects, say from my previous role, was that in digital marketing was they weren't the fastest to jump onto the old digital train. They weren't the earliest adopters. I remember moleskins and pencils being around for a lot longer than any other kind of groupings that I spoke to. And at the same time, you're all a bunch of creatives, and creatives generally are, and rightly so, I think they're quite afraid of what AI is going to do to their work and to their flow. So I think that's an extra couple of levels of difficulty in what you're doing. So I love what you're saying about, it's not one win, it's like everyone has their little wins. And then like it's your
Yes.
job to kind of like herd the cats to bring them all in that direction and go, well, John had this win. Do you want to try this one next? Is that how it
I
goes?
think I absolutely, absolutely, but that changes. That should actually sort of is constantly changing. It's not as easy as perhaps it. Not that I thought it was going to be easy. It's not as easy as it may have appeared at the beginning or even the first couple of months because trying to get everyone to the same level is going to be tricky, and that's going to apply to any organization.
Mm.
And we very much we've just published our AI policy. And we had to decide as we were writing this, the various aspects would have influenced our strategy, our infrastructure to date. But when we were trying to finalize it, we said, well, we need to figure out what exactly is this all about? Why did we do this? Why did we go this route? And that was going back to we had a strategy in place. We sort of knew where we were trying to go, but as we were sort of retrospectively trying to think about this. What does this actually mean for us? And one thing that we all agreed on was that we didn't want a whole series of experts sitting away in one corner of a practice. We didn't want
The
those
AI
technical people.
department. Yeah.
Absolutely,
That's like a
yes.
typing
We
pool.
well, we didn't, well, because again, we are creative people, right?
Mm.
And if you don't have the cohort with you, if you don't represent what we do as architects, I think you'll lose you lose the crowd, really, won't you? What you
Mm.
need to do is you need to make sure that you have a base layer of staff members across the practice that are able to use these tools in a fundamental way that can improve their work, their efficiency, that they become interested in the topic. They want to do the learning outside of work. They want
Mm.
to uh, ultimately they
Felt
want to
direct.
improve.
Mm.
Yes, absolutely. They want to improve how they approach work.
Hmm.
So we said that this is the potential for this AI to improve the work-life balance, really. That's
So,
and that's something that's quite critical, I think, for architects because we have endless deadlines.
well, endless deadlines are a feature of every industry, my friend. Can I take you back though to that graduate role then? So, say what would be your kind of vision for like let's say 5, 10 years down the track, where education has got their act together and they're providing graduates who are ready for the workplaces of today. What would that look like in an architectural practice?
I think it's very difficult to look even 2 years into the future at the
Well, yeah,
moment,
true.
let alone 12 months. It's
Or
it's
5 years.
it's absolutely it's
You're going to
quite
love my next
difficult.
question. You're going to love my
Okay.
next question.
Well, I think AI literacy in general, I think is probably one of the key things that colleges and businesses need to address.
Mm.
We all need to come to grips with this new way of doing things. Um, and as I alluded to, as we become more familiar with these tools, we're capable of moving on to the next level and the next level, and perhaps keeping up, or perhaps when the next thing comes along and it's even easier to access, and we could have thought, God, were we really doing it that hard way all along, and the tool just does it for us now. We still understand how that all came
And
about,
why we're doing it. Yeah.
and I think for the graduates, I think they'll go off and focus on areas of research a little bit more. And I've recently hired someone here, a graduate from SETU, who I saw when I was doing a critique for their final thesis a number of months ago. And they were doing a module, a very interesting AI module over 12 weeks, and it was in collaboration with Yale. And this student in particular had built a computer vision model that would read drawings, would do a QA process on drawings, and would sort of give a
Wow.
report back, and it was able to see the things that it was quite interesting. they did something that nobody else in the course was doing. I mean, other people were maybe just generating images with AI, and I mean that is an aspect of what we do too. But he said, I'm going to see if I can do something else with this tool and connect it back into what I have been learning. And he did, and I found this very interesting, and we offered
Mm,
him a position here to continue working on this.
fantastic.
This
Yeah. And
and
that's the kind of
I
person you want.
absolutely. But this skill, I mean,
Mm,
we didn't have this skill in the
mm,
practice. It's not traditionally something that an architect would have unless you begin upskilling. Some practices may have the people that are really good at computers, computational design.
mm,
We didn't necessarily have that. And I think that's what you're going to see coming out of college is you'll have a skill set that you don't have in a practice. And it'd take too long or be too costly to necessarily train someone else up to that level with that skill set. So they would come in and they contribute to the wider team. And we just need to see what are the new skills that you need in a practice. So perhaps we need the software engineer next or the data analyst. And,
mm.
you know,
Yeah.
these are, we can't all just be creatives, as you say, with the moleskin and the pen. We need to understand that there's a new environment.
Maybe universities will start offering like joint honours architecture and software design.
I mean,
That would be great.
it's I would like to think that the curriculum will be moving as quick as things are outside of the universities. I don't think they
Yes.
are.
I don't
I
think they
know that
are.
this module in particular was more so ran by a number of individuals within that college. So I think that's you're going to see that first. You're going to see different approaches. They'll try find their way, and then perhaps there'll be a national approach to it as well.
So, would I be right in saying then that your advice to anyone who's studying architecture at the moment and they're maybe about to graduate would be to, you know, go deep on learning something with AI, like whether it's Claude Code, whether you're doing something with ChatGPT, but like to have that curiosity and develop it because look at you just hired someone on the back of that.
Absolutely, because typically, like a graduate will come out, and their skills will be very limited in terms of how you apply them to the type of work that we do. Because
They're
it's
all
just the way
great. They all come out of college though knowing nothing.
well, I think the way architecture is taught in particular is you kind of it's a lot of it's theoretical at the earlier stages when
All
you're in
right.
college,
Yeah.
and then you have a lot of learning to do when you come out of college.
Yeah.
So you only get that by experience. Um, so you start along your way and you build up that experience as you go. But I think that students can be coming out with more than just sort of a basic understanding of maybe what we do. I think they can be bringing something new to the table, and that
Mm,
complements their approach. Now, the worry here is that you become over reliant on AI. I think that's a worry with
mm-hmm,
anyone in a junior level,
mm.
particularly coming out of college. You could show the shiny images in your portfolio. If you didn't know what you're looking at, you would think this person's great. I'm going to hire them, and perhaps they don't have the level of capability or expertise that you think they do.
Yeah.
That's going to be true for probably most professions and industries. But for architecture, when you bring in the shiny images as well and the animations and everything, it won't take much to sort of elevate your portfolios, and it may lack on substance overall. So
Mm,
we need to be as aware as much, right? On the hiring side, we need to understand what are we looking at, and
mm-hmm.
perhaps the people doing the hiring would be the people that are less familiar with these type of things. You know, the person reading the cover letter
Yes.
doesn't realize that it was full of on dashes and
Written by
leverages and
ChatGPT.
flosters,
Yeah,
and
yeah, yeah.
it was ChatGPT, and it was the free account, and it didn't really do a great job.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it undersold. I think for students though, if you were looking at this, that would undersell yourself. You
Did you
want
see
your
that?
persona to come through.
Did you see that graphic? The graphic that's going around of like the big fall in usage
Absolutely.
of ChatGPT just when
Yes.
colleges stopped and it was like this usage level went down. I say
It's
Sam Malcolm was
fascinating.
delighted, save you a bit of money there in
Yeah, it's
processing. Yeah.
fascinating. I know I've seen something similar to that
Yeah.
before, and it would always taper off in the weekends.
Yeah.
You know, when you're off at the weekends because everyone's using it for work,
Yeah.
and of course all these large companies they're studying the usage as much as they are trying to find out the new model. And I
True.
think if you're to consider that, you know, we study the usage here as well. I was looking at our usage on our own platform since December. And we have some very interesting statistics and I think the one that really struck me was that we were just about to break the 500 million token mark
Wow.
on this. Yet our cost was still down at what was it? 0.17 cent
Wow.
per message,
Mm.
which was, pretty much in line with what you would expect with even a low use model. And that's quite important. That's actually something that we're really conscious of as well. Is
What are you using? What are you using?
it's a platform called OmniChat, and it's developed by some of our consultants. So
Yes,
yeah, and
yes.
and,
So
and
it's a
actually
multiple,
today,
isn't it? A multiple of different models. Yeah,
absolutely,
yeah.
yeah, yeah. And it's we have our own instance of this that's localized for Henry J. Lyons here. Today we actually just announced Henry. So Henry is developing his persona at the moment, and he's working off GPT-5 chat,
Okay.
which I think is only available via the API. So we have a ton of models. We have a ton of models. And we're trying to figure out what does what. This one's
Yeah,
good at this. Claude Sonnet's really good at this. We
yeah,
use Opus every now and again, but Gemini Flash, you're
yeah,
doing all the reading here. You're
yeah,
the
yeah.
paralegal in this one, trying to sift through the documents and find the legal terms. So,
Brilliant.
um, that's a world that you're trying to explain to people that may not have that technical capability, which is tricky, you know?
Yeah, that's fantastic. I could sit here and chat all day. I have my future question. I'm going to ask you to
Okay.
answer this really quickly, okay? So, I love asking future vision people like yourself this. Imagine it's 2035, okay? It's beyond 2030, it's 2035, and you're walking through an urban space. Can be Dublin, can be somewhere else. And it perfectly embodies everything that you architects absolutely love. It's got human centered design, it's enhanced by AI, the sustainability woven in every detail. What's one small detail in that space that makes you go, yes, this is exactly why I do the work I do?
That's a really interesting one now. Um,
So
I
it's
don't know.
that marriage of
Perhaps,
architecture and AI.
perhaps I'd go back to what I used to do when I was in my earlier days and in college, and I'd take out the moleskin, as you're saying, and the pen, and I'd sit there and I'd take it all in and I'd draw it, and I'd do that because perhaps I don't, I'm not as pressured with the other stuff, the
Yes.
document review, the mundane stuff, the stuff that we said, right, okay, we've got that checked. Um, we can still see value in the things that are being created and developed. I mean, that would be a good thing to acknowledge. You know, if I'm taking something in and say, well, hey, maybe the human one, we still have a value. We're still producing nice buildings. We're doing something that people can experience, whether you're the architect or not, experience the nice space. We've won. We didn't
That,
lose out to the machine, and wouldn't that be nice to say?
That is lovely. I think that's a lovely note to end this particular show on. Before we go, though, before we wrap, anyone listening, if today's conversation with Breffni has actually shifted the way you're thinking about AI in your work, please hit the subscribe button now, because our goal with this podcast is to bring you face to face with leaders like Breffni, who are navigating the messy reality of bringing all the people along on AI implementation. Like, everyone's talking about it, everyone's talking about the potential, but we're focused on actually people who are bringing it in real life. So, Breffni Greene, thank you so much for taking the time to talk with me today.
It's been a pleasure.
If they want to find you, they find you on LinkedIn, I presume.
Absolutely, Breffni Greene. There's not many of me in the world, and
Great,
I work for Henry J. Lyons Architects.
great stuff. This is Mary Rose Lyons of Chatting GPT. Knocking off. Thank you very much for your time, Breffni.
Very good. Thank you all. Thank you.